The warning. The starship Resilience drifted silently through the void between stars, its hull gleaming under the light of distant suns. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the navigation display as they approached the coordinates, where humanity's long-range sensors had detected signs of intelligent life. After 3 years of deep space exploration, this moment represented everything the mission had been designed for. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," announced Communications Officer Lisa Park, her fingers dancing across her console. "It's on multiple frequencies and the computer is working on translation protocols." Elena moved closer to the communications station, her heart racing with anticipation. "Put it through the main speakers as soon as we have something coherent." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's systems. Then, crackling through the speakers, came a voice that was unmistakably alien, yet somehow understandable, through their translation systems. "Unknown vessel, you are approaching restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately or face defensive action." Elena straightened her uniform and activated the communications array. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez, of the Earth vessel Resilience. We come in peace seeking first contact with other intelligent species." A long pause followed, during which Elena could almost feel the tension radiating from her crew. Finally, the alien voice returned, but now it carried a tone of surprise, and something else, perhaps concern. "Earth vessel, you claim to represent a species unknown to the hegemony archives. This is highly unusual. Maintain your current position while we dispatch a diplomatic escort." Within hours, a sleek, alien craft approached the Resilience. Its design was unlike anything in human engineering. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with internal light. As it drew alongside, Elena felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded her of her first day at the Space Academy. The docking procedure went smoothly, and soon Elena found herself in the ship's conference room, facing her first alien diplomat. Ambassador Kethvar was a tall reptilian being with scales that shifted color slightly as he moved. His large golden eyes held an intelligence that immediately commanded respect. "Captain Rodriguez," Kethvar began, his voice carrying harmonics that the translation system couldn't quite capture. "Your species is indeed unknown to us. This is remarkable, as the hegemony has maintained contact with most intelligent life in this galactic sector for millennia." Elena leaned forward, eager to learn more. "We're honored to meet you, Ambassador. Humanity has long wondered if we were alone in the universe. What is this hegemony you mention?" Kethvar's scales shifted to a deeper blue, which Elena's xenobiologist, Dr. James Wright, quietly noted might indicate a serious mood. "The hegemony is an alliance of 47 species, formed not for conquest or trade, but for survival. We share information, resources, and most importantly, warnings." "Warnings? About what?" Elena asked, though something in Kethvar's tone made her suspect she might not like the answer. The ambassador stood and activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. Stars appeared, showing a 3-dimensional map of the local galactic region. Many systems were marked with different colored indicators. "These blue markers represent current hegemony worlds," Kethvar explained. "The red markers show former colonies, abandoned within the last 1,000 years. And these black markers—" He paused, his scales shifting to an almost purple hue. "These represent systems that no longer exist." Dr. Wright spoke up from his position near the wall. "What do you mean, no longer exist?" Kethvar manipulated the display, zooming in on one of the black markers. The hologram showed what appeared to be empty space where a star system should have been. "The Devourers," he said simply. "They come without warning, consume everything, planets, stars, even the space between them, and move on. No species has ever successfully resisted them." Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her voice steady. "How do you know no one has resisted if they consume everything?" "Because, Captain Rodriguez, in 10,000 years of recorded galactic history, every species that has encountered the Devourers has survived by following one simple strategy: immediate evacuation. We run, we hide, we relocate to new systems. It is the only way. The room fell silent as the human crew absorbed this information. Finally, Elena's tactical officer, Commander Sarah Kim, asked the question they were all thinking. How do you know when they're coming? Kethvar's eyes seemed to dim. We have detection networks throughout the galaxy, energy signatures that precede their arrival. And, Captain, he looked directly at Elena, they are coming toward your sector. Our best estimates suggest they will reach Earth's system within 6 months. Elena's mind raced. 6 months to evacuate the entire human population? It seemed impossible. How many people can your evacuation ships carry? The hegemony has protocols for this situation. We can evacuate perhaps 10 million individuals from any single planet. Priority is typically given to leaders, scientists, artists, those who can help preserve the species' culture and knowledge. Dr. Wright stepped forward, his face pale. 10 million? Captain, Earth has over 8 billion people. The weight of Kethvar's words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing the same mixture of shock and determination in their faces that she felt in her heart. Ambassador, Elena said carefully, has any species ever tried to fight back? Kethvar's scales shifted to a color Elena hadn't seen before, a deep, almost black purple. Captain, you must understand, the Devourers are not merely powerful enemies. They are a force of nature, like trying to fight a supernova or a black hole. In all our history, combat has never been considered an option. But what exactly are they? Commander Kim pressed. Ships? Creatures? Machines? All of those and none of them, Kethvar replied. They appear to be massive biomechanical entities, each one the size of a small moon. They move through space by manipulating gravity itself, and they consume matter by breaking it down at the molecular level. When they finish with a system, nothing remains but empty space. Elena stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, something was coming that had terrified every intelligent species in the galaxy for 10 millennia. The rational part of her mind understood why evacuation was the only option these species had ever considered. But she was human. Ambassador Kethvar, she said, turning back to face the alien diplomat, I need to ask you to escort my ship back to Earth immediately. My people need to know what's coming. Kethvar's large eyes blinked slowly. Of course, Captain. The hegemony. We'll prepare evacuation vessels immediately. Given your species population, we recommend prioritizing your most essential personnel. Elena shook her head. I'm not talking about evacuation, Ambassador. I'm talking about giving humanity the information we need to make our own choice. The alien diplomat's scales shifted rapidly through several colors before settling on what Elena was beginning to recognize as confusion. Captain, I fear I don't understand. What choice is there to make? The choice between running and standing our ground. Kethvar made a sound that the translation system rendered as something between a gasp and a hiss. Captain Rodriguez, you cannot be serious. No species stands against the Devourers. It is simply not done. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing nods of agreement and determination on every face. They were human, and humans had never been particularly good at accepting that something simply couldn't be done. Ambassador, Elena said, with respect to your experience and the wisdom of the hegemony, humanity has a different perspective on impossible situations. We'll need all the technical data you can share about these Devourers. You're talking about suicide, Kethvar said, his voice carrying harmonics of distress. Your entire species will be lost. Maybe, Elena admitted, or maybe it's time for the galaxy to learn that some species refuse to run. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, during which Kethvar and his team shared everything the hegemony knew about the Devourers. Elena absorbed every detail, every tactical report, every failed strategy from species that had tried anything other than immediate evacuation. When the Resilience entered Earth's orbit, Elena knew that what happened next would define not just humanity's future, but possibly the future of every species in the galaxy. As she looked down at her homeworld, blue and beautiful and utterly unprepared for what was coming, she felt the weight of the choice her species would have to make. Run, like every other intelligent species in galactic history, or stand and face the darkness with everything humanity had to offer. The choice would be made soon enough. The stand, the emergency session of the United Earth Council, had been in progress for 18 hours. President Marcus Chen sat at the head of the massive conference table, surrounded by representatives from every nation on Earth. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the tactical data that Captain Rodriguez had brought back from her encounter with the hegemony. "The mathematics are clear," said Dr. Sarah Kim, who had been promoted to Director of Planetary Defense in the weeks since the Resilience returned. "We have 5 months and 12 days before the Devourers reach our solar system. Every simulation we've run suggests that our current military capabilities would be insufficient against even a single Devourer entity." President Chen looked around the table at the faces of world leaders who had been arguing for nearly a day straight. Half wanted to accept the hegemony's evacuation offer, while the other half insisted that abandoning Earth was unacceptable. "Dr. Kim," said Chancellor Yuki Tanaka from the European Federation, "what would we need to mount an effective defense?" Sarah activated a new section of the holographic display, showing theoretical weapon systems and defensive platforms. "We would need to completely revolutionize our understanding of physics and engineering. The hegemony data suggests the Devourers manipulate matter at the quantum level. To fight them, we'd need weapons that can disrupt their molecular cohesion on a massive scale." "In 5 months?" asked President Maria Santos from the South American Alliance. "That's impossible." "Is it?" interrupted a new voice from the back of the room. Dr. Raj Patel, Earth's leading quantum physicist, stepped forward. "I've been analyzing the hegemony data for weeks. These Devourers aren't magic. They're using advanced applications of known physics. If we can understand their methods, we might be able to counter them." President Chen leaned forward. "Explain." Dr. Patel moved to the display controls, bringing up complex equations and energy patterns. "The Devourers consume matter by destabilizing molecular bonds and converting the released energy for their own use. But every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If we can generate interference patterns at the quantum level, we might be able to disrupt their feeding process." "Theoretically," added Dr. Kim, "we don't have the technology to implement something like that." "Not yet," Patel agreed. "But we have something the other species never had when they faced this threat." "What's that?" asked President Chen. Patel smiled grimly. "Time to prepare and the knowledge that running away is not acceptable to us." Ambassador Kethvar, who had remained on Earth as a liaison with the hegemony, spoke up from his position near the wall. "President Chen, I must emphasize that no species in galactic history has successfully resisted the Devourers. The hegemony's offer to evacuate 10 million humans remains open, but time is running short to organize such an operation." President Chen stood and walked to the large windows overlooking the sprawling city below. Millions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that their world's fate was being decided in this room. "Ambassador Kethvar," he said without turning around, "how many species has the hegemony lost to the Devourers over the millennia?" Kethavar's scales shifted to a somber blue. 17 entire civilizations that chose to remain and face the Devourers, hundreds of colonies that couldn't be evacuated in time. And how many have successfully fought back? None, as I have repeatedly explained. President Chen turned to face the room. "Then maybe it's time for someone to be first." The vote was closer than many had expected, but humanity's decision was clear. Earth would not be abandoned. The evacuation offer was respectfully declined, and humanity would stand and fight. The next 5 months transformed human civilization. Dr. Patel's theories led to the development of quantum disruptor technology, weapons that could theoretically interfere with the Devourer's molecular manipulation abilities. Dr. Kim coordinated the construction of massive orbital defense platforms, each one equipped with the most advanced weaponry humanity could create. Commander Jake Thompson, formerly of the International Space Defense Force, was placed in charge of military coordination. Under his leadership, every able-bodied human received basic combat training. Not because individual soldiers could fight moon-sized entities, but because humanity refused to face extinction passively. The key is coordination, Thompson explained to his senior staff as they reviewed the defense plans. The Devourers operate as individual entities, but our advantage is that we can work together. Every defense platform, every ship, every orbital station will be part of a single coordinated response. Meanwhile, engineers and scientists worked around the clock to prepare Earth's defenses. The orbital shipyards that had been building colony vessels were retooled to produce warships. The moon became a massive weapons platform, its surface bristling with quantum disruptors and energy cannons. Ambassador Kethvar observed these preparations with a mixture of admiration and deep concern. In all his centuries of diplomatic service, he had never seen a species respond to the Devourer threat with anything but panic and immediate evacuation planning. "Captain Rodriguez," he said during one of their regular briefings, "I must ask you honestly, do you truly believe humanity can succeed where every other species has failed?" Elena looked out at the construction occurring in Earth's orbit, where thousands of workers labored to complete the defense grid. "Ambassador, I think you're asking the wrong question." "What do you mean?" "You're asking if we can win, but that's not what this is about." She turned to face him. "This is about choosing how we face the darkness. Every other species chose to run, to preserve themselves by abandoning their homes. We're choosing to stand for ours." Kethvar's scales shifted to a color Elena had learned indicated deep thought. "Even if it means extinction? Even then. Because some things matter more than survival." On the day the Devourers entered the solar system, every human on Earth felt the moment of their arrival. The massive entities emerged from hyperspace near Pluto, their dark forms immediately detectable by Earth's long-range sensors. They were exactly as the hegemony data had described, moon-sized biomechanical constructs that seemed to absorb light itself. President Chen addressed the world from the Global Defense Command Center. "Citizens of Earth, the moment we have prepared for has arrived. In the next few hours, humanity will face its greatest test. We stand not just for ourselves, but for the principle that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the odds." The Devourers moved through the solar system with terrifying purpose, consuming asteroids and small moons as they approached Earth. Their method was exactly as described. They engulfed matter with energy fields that broke down molecular bonds, absorbing the released energy to fuel their continued advance. But as they passed Jupiter, something unprecedented happened. Earth's defense fleet, led by the upgraded Resilience, engaged the lead Devourer with quantum disruptor weapons. For the first time in galactic history, a Devourer's feeding process was interrupted. The massive entity recoiled as its molecular manipulation field was disrupted, causing it to release a blast of chaotic energy. The other Devourers in the swarm paused, their biomechanical systems apparently confused by this unexpected resistance. "All ships concentrate fire on the lead entity," commanded Jake Thompson from his flagship. "Show them that Earth doesn't surrender easily." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Humanity's ships darted around the massive Devourers like insects attacking giants, but their quantum weapons found their mark again and again. The orbital defense platforms around Earth added their firepower to the assault, creating a coordinated attack that the Devourers had never encountered before. Watching from observation ships at the edge of the solar system, representatives of the hegemony species witnessed something they had thought impossible. A Devourer was damaged. Its biomechanical surface showed scars from humanity's weapons, and its movement became erratic. "This is unprecedented," whispered Kethvar to his fellow observers. "No species has ever successfully damaged a Devourer entity." The battle raged for hours. Humanity lost ships and platforms, but they continued fighting with a determination that amazed the watching aliens. Even when outmatched, even when facing certain death, human forces regrouped and attacked again. Then came the moment that would be remembered throughout galactic history. As the damaged lead Devourer approached, Earth itself, the planet's entire orbital defense grid fired simultaneously. Hundreds of quantum disruptors focused their energy on a single point, creating an interference pattern so powerful It completely destabilized the entity's molecular cohesion. The devourer collapsed in on itself, its massive form breaking apart into component elements that scattered harmlessly into space. For the first time in 10,000 years, a devourer had been destroyed. The remaining entities in the swarm stopped their advance, their hive intelligence apparently trying to process this impossible event. Then slowly, they began to withdraw from the solar system. As news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, species that had fled before the devourers for millennia began to reconsider their ancient assumptions. If one young species could stand and fight successfully, perhaps the age of running was finally over. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Resilience, looking out at the debris field where humanity had made its stand. Earth still spun peacefully, in the void, wounded but unbroken. "Captain," said her communications officer, "we're receiving messages from hegemony worlds throughout the sector. They want to know how we did it." Elena smiled, thinking of all the species who had spent millennia believing that some battles couldn't be won. "Tell them," she said, "that sometimes the most important victories come not from superior weapons or tactics but from refusing to accept that defeat is inevitable." In the depths of space, the surviving devourers retreated to whatever dark realm had spawned them, perhaps for the first time in their existence having learned that not all prey would run. And throughout the galaxy, species began to whisper of the humans who had stood their ground when everyone else had fled, changing the course of galactic history with a simple refusal to surrender their home.